In this lesson, we're going to take a quick look at paying your expenses. So specifically, how to decide when to pay for different things and how to save money from different pays to make sure that you can pay for everything. Now, we did touch on this in our last unit when we were talking about different pay schedules. This is essentially the same idea. We're just going to look at it in a slightly more detailed way. So pay periods in general means how often we're paid. And there's a whole bunch of different ways, although the most common four are listed right there. So you can get paid weekly. Now, two of these are really, really obvious. Weekly means you get one pay per week. An example of that, many people get paid every Friday. Now, biweekly means one pay every 2 weeks. So twice as much money, but half as often. And a good example, that would be every other Friday. And I believe that's becoming probably the most popular method of getting paid right now is biweekly. Doing it weekly, first of all, it's just kind of it's that much more work for the employer to process payments and pays every week because it does cost them money and bookkeeping and accounting to do that. But it's often enough that most people aren't having problems running out of money or anything. You could do semi-monthly, which is twice a month. And this can be different from person to person, but for instance, it could be the 1st and 15th of the month, regardless of which day of the week that is. And then monthly, one pay per month, obviously. And let's say it's the last day of the month. Now, the downside to any kind of monthly payment is keeping in mind that the pay that you would receive, say, for instance, at the end of February would actually be the pay for the month of January because there's usually a delay. They've got to have the numbers in. They can't just pay you for February on the last day of February because then they literally have to take the last day's work and try and fit it into the paycheck for the day. And yeah, it doesn't work so well. So I will point out, and we've already seen this before and we're gonna see it again, is that biweekly means 26 pays a year. Semi-monthly means 24 pays a year. So they're not exactly the same thing. One of them results in 2 more pays a year than the other. And there's a slight difference in budgeting based on how you do these. So I'm going to point out now that paid biweekly, 26 pays a year. Since most bills are monthly bills, if you get 26 pays a year, you'll get 2 pays in every month, but twice a year, you're going to get 3 pays. That's where your extra 2 pays come in. So for instance, if I get paid on the 1st, then I'm also going to get paid on the 15th and the 29th. So I'll get 3 pays in that one month. And as somebody who gets paid like that, the one reason I like that is because twice a year, I essentially get an extra paycheck that I'm not using to budget with. So for instance, all my rent, utilities, all that stuff is monthly. So I'm already paying for that every month out of my 2 paychecks. But that twice a year where I get the bonus paycheck, it's not technically bonus, I've earned it, but where I get that 3rd paycheck, that's when I maybe go out and buy a new sofa or a new dishwasher or the new video game that I want or an Xbox Series X if I can ever find one. I don't think I ever will. But anyway, that's usually what I use that extra paycheck twice a year for, is those little more frivolous things. Okay, so here we have some monthly bills. This is semi-realistic. I won't say it's entirely realistic, but again, it changes based on the person. But here are some bills. We have a $800 rent bill that's due on the 1st day of the month. Car payment of $450 due on the last day of the month. Insurance, $200 on the 15th of the month. Cable and internet, $130 on the last day of the month. Cell phone, $60 15th. My Visa bill, $180 on the 10th day, and my MasterCard bill, $125 on the 22nd day. Now, I put the Visa and MasterCard here. Obviously, those aren't things that I actually am buying each month. Like I'm paying for a cell phone because I get use of it. But most people with credit cards end up using them for kind of like little day-to-day purchases. So when they stop to get lunch someday, or they need to pick up a new toaster or whatever it is, they'll throw it onto a credit card. So rather than try to list all those little individual purchases as expenses, I'm just going to say you're spending about that much on each credit card a month. And that's kind of your total of all those little things. All right. Say that your gross annual pay is $40,000 a year and that you lose 30% to deductions. Find your net paycheck if you're paid monthly, semi-monthly, bi-weekly, and weekly. So first of all, let's just at the top here. I didn't really have a spot for it, but if we have 30% deductions, that means we get to keep 70%. So 70% of 40,000 is 0.70 times 40,000. And 70% of 40,000 is going to be 28,000. So that's actually our net that we get to take home. So how much will we get a month then? Well, that's 28,000 divided by 12. And that works out to 2,333 per month. Let's round off to the closest dollar. Semi-monthly, twice a month. Well, it's just going to be that number divided by 2. And again, I'm going to round that off a little bit to 1167. Now I'm actually going to skip biweekly for a moment. Actually, now we don't have to. Biweekly, if there's, we just saw that there's 26 pays in a year. By the way, semi-monthly, I could have just done 28,000 divided by 24 because we saw that there's 24 pays in a year. I just did my monthly divide by 2. It's the same calculation. Biweekly would be 28,000 over 26. And that's $1,077 a month. Sorry, biweekly. And then weekly would be half of that, or I can go back to the original and say 28,000 divided by 52 gives us $538 a week. Okay. How much do you have to spend on other expenses after your bills are paid? Well, let's figure out what the total of all those are. If we go up and add those, we got 800 plus 450 plus 200 plus 130 plus 60 plus 180 plus 125 for a grand total of $1,945. Whew. Okay, that's tough because we only make $23.33 a month. So it looks like it's going to be $23.33 minus $19.45. And that leaves us with $388 for the month. So that's $388 or about $12, $13 a day. We still have to pay for food and clothing and everything else. Okay. How long does it need to last? Oh, 1 month. Let's see if we can stretch that out. Okay. If you get paid biweekly, which bills get paid out of your first pay each month? So your first pay each month is, now this is something people don't usually think of. They think of it as being early in the month, but the first pay could be from the 1st to the 14th. So you may not actually get your first payment of the month until the 14th of the month. So people think, well, the first pay of the month, I'll pay for everything that comes out like the first day of the month or the 10th day of the month, but you may not have that bill then. So what you actually want to do is use that pay to pay for everything that's the 15th or later, because the 15th or later, you'll definitely have gotten your first pay of the month by then. So first pay of the month would be this one. The last day, that works. Last day, 15th I can pay, 22nd I can pay. So those are all things that I'm going to pay out of my first pay of the month. So I'm just going to list those down here. Which bills do we pay? We pay our car. We pay our insurance. You know what? While I've got it here, why don't we just write down those numbers? The car is $450. The insurance is $200. The cable internet is $130. Sorry, I realize that you can't see in the video those numbers, but you should have this handout to refer to. So just look up the page. Cable internet, the phone bill we can pay, cell phone. So cell phone would be the $60. The Visa bill we're going to have to wait, and the MasterCard bill we can pay. So MasterCard bill is on the 22nd. It's $125. Okay, so if we add up all of those, what do we get in total? 450 plus 200 plus 130 plus 60 plus 125 is $965. And how much do we have after we paid our bills? Wait a second. How much did we make biweekly? Biweekly we made $1,077. So 1,077 minus 965 . Try that one more time. 1,077 minus 965 is $112. Okay, so we have $112 left over after we've paid off our second half of the month bills. And which ones get paid out of the second pay each month? Well, we've already covered the car and all that stuff, so we still have the rent, which is $800. We have the Visa, which is $180. And I just want to check real quick that we've got everything paid for. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bills, 5 out of the first and 2 out of the second. Yeah, that works. And our total is going to be $980. Okay, well that actually works out pretty nicely. 1,077 minus 980. And that gives us $97. So that's $97 we have to last us 2 weeks. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. If we want to do it with a weekly pay, budgeting becomes a little bit harder. So now I'm going to go back and just figure out which one each pay should go towards. So just a reminder, your first pay, if you're paid weekly, could come between the 1st and the 7th, which means it should pay for bills from the 8th to the 14th. And your second one should come between the 8th and the 14th. It's going to pay bills for the 15th to the 22nd. And your third bill is going to pay things from the 22nd, 23rd to the 30th. This, of course, assumes it's not February. And then your last paycheck will cover the 31st to the 7th. So it's actually your last paycheck of the month that's going to pay for your bills at the beginning of the next month. Now we got to be a little bit careful here, because if something is due on the 30th, that's our third pay of the month. But if the month is only, it has 31 days, a last day of the month could be either the 30th or the 31st. So it could come out of your third pay or your fourth pay. So what we should do is put it in a place where we're sure it's going to get paid on time. Okay, so going down the list, rent is due on the 1st. That would fall here. And rent is $800. Our car payment is the last of the month. We might be able to pay it with our fourth, but we probably should pay it with our third, because the 30th could be the last day of the month. So we'll put the car there. The insurance is on the 15th. We can pay that with the 15th should be the second pay of the month. So that was insurance. And insurance is $200. Cable internet, last of the month. Same idea as the car. Cable internet, and that was $130. The cell phone is the 15th. That's $60. The Visa is the 10th, so we better pay it here. And that was $180. And the MasterCard was the 22nd. We can pay for that here. So the MasterCard is $125. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little quick total down here for each of these. That's $180. This is $385. This is $580. And this is $800. I just need to remind myself, how much are we making per week? Per week is $538 right there. So the first week, I do $538. I'm just going to put a little reminder up here. $538 weekly. $538 minus $180 is $358. Woo! The end of the first week, I'm pretty rich. I'm going to go buy myself some new Xbox games. I've got $358 left over. The second week, I do $538 minus $385, which is $153. Okay, not as rich, but I'd still go for dinner. The third week is $538 minus $580. Oh, negative $42. So that means I better save some of the money from my second paycheck, at least $42 of it, so that I can pay those bills. And then the fourth week, $538 minus 800. It's negative $262. Well, I better borrow some of that from my third pay, except my third pay is already negative. I already borrowed against my second pay. That means I have to use some of my first pay for that one. It's almost a month later. Okay, so this is where budgeting, if you're paid weekly, becomes a little bit trickier, because when you figure out which bills you have to pay, it's easy to say my rent's not due until, the end of the month or the first of the month, but you actually may have to pay for it using some of your pay from like the third of the month before. So then what we do is we try to equalize it a bit. So we know that our total expenses, if we go back up, were $1,945 a month. So if I want to divvy that up amongst 4 paychecks, 1945 divided by 4 is about $486. So that means I want about $486 about $486 a week in bills paid off in order to kind of evenly distribute my costs. It doesn't have to be exactly 486, but 486 would be ideal. So now let's look if we can shift any of these from where they are to an earlier paycheck of the month. So basically we pay them off early. Okay, so Visa's 180. And I want this to be $486. So it looks like I'm going to need about another $306. So you know what? Maybe I'm going to pay off my insurance and my MasterCard early. That's 200 and 125. Is that exactly 486? No, it's not, but it's pretty close. 180 plus 200 plus 125. So that's $505. And 505 subtracted from 538 means that I have $33 left for the week. But I do have some bills paid off. That's pretty good. Okay, so now I have the insurance and the MasterCard paid off from week 2 already. So I still have my cell phone. And again, I'm shooting for about 486, so I'm looking for another $426. Oh, why don't I do my car payment then? Okay, so that's 510 bucks. 538 minus 510 leaves me $28 for the week. It's tough, but it is what it is. Okay, so the next week I have cable, which is $450. Oops, sorry. I definitely do not want a $450 cable bill. Cable's $130. And then I've only got one thing left in the last month, which is $800. Now, this is where the trick comes in. Maybe I'm going to pay some of my rent this week and some of it with my fourth pay. So in order to balance these, I've got 800 plus my 130 cable bill is 930. So 930 divided by 2, I want to pay about 465 a week. So I'm going to pay 465 of my rent here. And then I'm going to pay the remainder of my rent, which is about 335 there. So I broke my rent payment into 2 pieces. You can do that. You can pay a little bit early. That's nothing wrong. Or at the very least, just leave the $335 in your account where you know you can't touch it until you make the full 800. But you've got to set aside $335 from that pay. Otherwise, you won't have enough. And then from there, we can say the total there is 465. And the total there is obviously 465. So 538 minus 465 is $73 each of these weeks. Now, could we have balanced it a little bit better so that we have more equal money each week? And I'm sure we could, but then it becomes kind of like, do we break down all of the bills? So more likely what's going to happen is if we do this, then the next month, because we had $73 each of these 2 weeks, we're going to have a little bit money that we haven't spent that we can put towards, the next 2 weeks, the $33 week and the $28 week to kind of balance it. All right. So some of you may have noticed something that's missing here, and that's that if we assume 4 pays a month, we're squeaking by. But remember that 4 pays a month would be 48 pays in a year. And we actually get 52 weeks in a year. So that means that there's going to be 4 months that get a fifth bonus pay. So every 3 months or so, we're going to get a fifth pay in the month, and it's not budgeted for anything. So that's when we're going to buy our extra stuff. That's when we replace the dishwasher, or buy a new lazy boy, or get a new television set, or whatever it is that we have to do. Maybe a car repair or something like that. Okay, so I'm hoping that at the very least you can see that this isn't the easiest process in the world. It does take some time and it does take some thought. So budgeting is not super simple, but if you do it, your life will be better. Okay, question 5. What is the advantage of getting paid semi-monthly instead of bi-weekly? Well, getting 2 paychecks a month instead of a pay every 2 weeks is they're going to be slightly larger pays. So you will get slightly bigger pays. Now, an advantage of budgeting like you're getting paid semi-monthly, even though you're getting paid bi-weekly, is that you're going to have those extra bonus checks or bonus pays each year. So you have slightly less money per pay, but you're budgeting like that's it, that you're only getting 2 in a month. And then twice a year, you'll get that extra one and you buy the extra stuff. Advantage of budgeting for 4 pays in a month, even though you're getting paid weekly. And that's 4 bonus pays a year. Now, keep in mind, that's not twice as good as getting paid biweekly. It just means that the biweekly ones are going to get 2 biweekly checks a year, so 4 weeks of pay. And then the 4 weekly pay ones will be 4 weeks of pay as well. So you get smaller bonuses, but twice as often. All right. I realize that this can be a little bit confusing. Really, the only way to get better at it is to kind of play with it and try it and see if the answers make sense. So go through, try the practice problems. If you need any assistance with them, let me know and I will happily help you. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next lesson.